Hey folks, this is Matt once again. Welcome back to another review. This is a thank you to Lorraine Francisco 31 who had gotten me this film, Apollo 13. It's a 2-disc anniversary edition, which is really cool. And I had not seen this film in a while. And what this has, it has the Triumph of Apollo 13, the making of the film, which is about an hour-long making of. I think you have some interviews from back in the day, but you have some new interviews like Ron Howard and Bill Paxton, and some old interviews with, I think the ones with Tom Hanks and Kevin Bacon's Dear Sinise were older ones. About hour-long making of. Counter with director Ron Howard. Counter with Jim and Marilyn Lovell. Jim Lovell, the real astronaut that this is based on. Production notes trailer. Disc 2. A recap of the last 45 years in space. Recounting the events of the mission Apollo 13 from their point of view. And then another version of the film, which is the IMAX version, which I guess when this came out in IMAX, the film itself is 2 hours and 20 minutes long, and I guess you can't fit that much on an IMAX at the time. You can do that now, but I guess at the time you cannot fit that much footage on an IMAX. So they cut it down about 24 minutes. I know some of the stuff taken out was like, I think the scene where Kathleen Quinlan loses her wedding ring, or you have a scene with when Tom Hanks is going to his training to be on the for his mission. He gets on a fighter plane, and then when it flies over, you see Kathleen Quinlan watch and the fighter plane go by in the sky. A scene where the three of them, Bill Paxton, Tom Hanks, and Kevin Bacon, they're doing this interview where Tom Hanks says there's nothing routine about space. I think some of that stuff is cut out. And watching this film again, I like this film. I think I wanted to see this film again because I do like Gravity. Yes, I like Gravity more than this, but that's just because Gravity is more of an escapism, action, ride, and this has to stick the basis because it's based on a true story. At the flip side, this is still a very well done, and it's one of my favorite dramatic Tom Hanks movies. I mean, my favorite Tom Hanks movie will always be The Burbs. But for his serious stuff, Apollo 13 is one of his best, and I think it's one of Ron Howard's best. In fact, I'd have to look on his Ron Howard, his directing. This might be my favorite one of his that he did. Let me look through all the stuff he directed. See, Night Shift, Splash, Cocoon, Gun Ho, Willow, Backdraft, Parenthood, Far and Away, The Paper, Ransom, Ed TV, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, A Beautiful Mind, The Missing, Cinderella Man, The Da Vinci Code, Angels and Demons, The Dilemma, Rush. I didn't see Rush. The Da Vinci Code, I didn't mind the story, but it's a very long movie. Angels and Demons, I liked. Didn't see the other ones, like The Missing, A Beautiful Mind. How the Grinch Stole Christmas, not a fan. Ed TV, just I thought it was a poor version of Truman Show. Ransom, haven't seen that in a while. Didn't see The Paper or Far and Away. Backdraft is a good one. Parenthood, Willow, I don't mind Willow. Gun Ho, I enjoyed. Cocoon, good one. Splash, haven't seen that in forever. Night Shift, haven't seen that in forever. So yeah, I would say this is my favorite. I mean, of the ones I've seen and remember, Apollo 13 is my favorite Ron Howard film. Of course, the three assets, Jim Lovell, Jack Swigert, Fred Haise. Y'all know, Houston, we have a problem. So many things got fucked up, and they didn't make it to the moon, but they did make it home, which was the more important thing and the most important thing. And I thought this film was very well done. It was well handled. The score was it? Did James? Yeah, James Horner did the score. I liked the score. I thought the acting was really well done. I thought all from Tom Hanks to Kevin Bacon, Bill Paxton, Ed Harris, Gary Sinise who his character was going to be part of the 3 crew, but then they were worried that he was going to get the measles because someone else was there and had the measles, but he never did get the measles, but he did help Mission Control when trying to figure this problem out to get him home, and so Darius Sinise's character was replaced with Kevin Bacon's character. It was just well handled. It was... I mean, it's that part of you as a kid when you always wanted to be an astronaut. I thought they captured that very well in space. I thought the special effects still hold up well. And I thought, you know, I mean, who doesn't remember Houston, we have a problem? Who doesn't remember that line of dialogue? Catherine Quinlan as the wife of Tom Hanks, she does a good job. I don't know if it's worth an Oscar nomination, but I thought she did fine, but I don't know if an Oscar-nominated performance. And Ed Harris was good. I don't know if an Oscar-nominated performance good, but Ed Harris was good. Now, of course, Ed Harris would have a voice in Gravity. But just... some people may have a problem with this because it's a long film. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes. Again, the IMAX version is under 2 hours, but I watched the longer version, the 2 hours and 20 minutes. I didn't really have a problem with it. I'm just saying some people may have a problem with it. But I'm interested in the story. I mean, it's a real life story, but it's still a great story. And, I mean, you have the beginning of the film where Tom Hanks gets home to his family. I think actually one of his kids, like, one of them is Miko Hughes, who is in Wes Craven's New Nightmare and Pet Sematary. And the other, I think, is one of the 3 ninjas. Was it Max Elliott Slade? I think he's like one of the 3 ninjas, at least from the first film. I'm like, I recognize these people. Wow. But they're watching, of course, Neil Armstrong land on the moon, and you have that thing. I like what Tom Hanks does, where he looks at the moon, he does like this. It does like this. And you get a sense that he really wants to be back up there. And he's still with NASA this time. He's hoping he'll be a part of Apollo 14, because Apollo 13 is coming up. And you actually have Roger Corman. Roger Corman is there as he says his line, if there is an Apollo 14. Because now that they've landed on the moon, they're like, well, what's the point of doing this? What's the point of going back into space again since we beat the Russians? And, you know, Tom Hanks says a line like, well, what would happen if Christopher Columbus landed and he never came back? Or no one followed in his footsteps. I think it was a line. If no one followed in his footsteps. And of course, you have the characters and training on Mission Control. Just thinking that Darius Sinise don't get the measles, he just switched out. Kevin Bacon gets put in. Yeah, that moment where it goes from Kevin Bacon to yo! And then it cuts to Darius Sinise just being distraught that he's not going to be able to get this chance. And the production value was well done. The money was very well spent on this movie. It was very well spent. I mean, this film in 1995 cost $52 million. I thought the budget was well used because I think the effects still look well. Mission Control looks real enough for me. I don't think there's a bad person in the cast. I will admit, I wasn't the most interested in Catherine Quinlan's wife character, because once in a while it goes back to her losing her wedding ring, or the TV crew didn't film them when they were in space, but now that when it's a problem, now they want to film, and she's like, no, I don't want your cameras here. You know, I don't want to put that antenna at my place. If you have a problem, you could talk to my husband. He'll be back on Friday. I mean, it wasn't the most interesting, so maybe, you know, for those who... Well, still, even in the under 2 hour version, they cut, like, the scene here where they're being interviewed, so... The stuff with Kathleen Quinlan wasn't bad, but wasn't the most interesting. It was more like, okay, let's get back to the problem at hand. And they just had a lot of problems. They had a lot of problems with the air seeping out, and when Tom Hanks is telling, you know, some good tense sequences. I mean... I say suspense, but it's based on a true story. You know what happened. You know what's going to happen. So it's hard to say suspenseful when you know. Even if you first see it, you know, it's based on a true story. I know about Apollo 13, so I know they lived. So, you know, how do you make suspense out of that? But they do the best they can, and it still works well. I thought it was well directed by Ron Howard. And just, you know, the gas seeping out, the oxygen seeping out, and trying to figure out what they need to do. You know, the realization that they're not going to be able to land on the moon, and when they pass by it, Tom Hanks, like, he visualizes himself landing there, and, you know, touching it through his glove. But then he says, you know, I really want to get home. Like, he says that type of line, so it's like, you know, his head is on straight. These are professional astronauts, and they would love to do that. I mean, if you're one of them, why wouldn't you? But they know what's more important. And it's not like you did tons of, when that's all the stuff's going on, it's not like you did tons of big character moments, like knowing about their feelings and thoughts and what they like and dislike. But at the same time, it makes sense because they don't want to die. So it's fixing the problem at hand. And even back at NASA, trying to make this filter with what they have up there. What can they do? Is they got to put like this square thing in a round hole, or this round. I think it was like this square thing in a round hole or something. Like, try to make this filter. And they did Gary Sinise's character because they need to work at very limited power, and if they go too much, they'll everything will be fried and fucked up. So they had to figure out how they can have all the stuff that they need, but at the, what was it? As much power as it takes to run a coffee maker. So it's one of those things that it was really just an interesting story. Like, all the stuff that happened and all the stuff that they had to go through. It was just really shows you a lot of people would not have been able to handle that, but these guys did, and not only them, but the people on NASA were able to get these guys home. It's really a good story. I thought this was interesting too. The technical aspects of making this film, they obtained permission to film scenes aboard a reduced gravity aircraft for realistic depiction of the weightlessness experienced by astronauts in space. And I thought that was handled very well, because you really buy that these people are weightless, because they were. And like, they shot what needed to be shot, then they shot the rest on the ground, and you can't tell the difference between what was shot where and when. This is one of those films that I'm not sure what more I can say about Apollo 13. It's sort of a film that explains itself. I mean, all the stuff that's going on, them getting colder, Bill Paxton, his character throwing up, him and Kevin Bacon little in a fight because Kevin Bacon pushed a button that he was told to do, and that's when things started going on. They have a little fight there, so you have a little bit of friction there, but not too much. Them having to sort of fly the thing manually. So it's okay, how long do we have to go? Time it. How long this is the trajectory so we don't get bounced off. And before that, having to wrap around the moon in order to go back and use the force of the moon to go back. Just a lot of stuff is happening, as well as on mission control as well. And again, I think maybe some people would find it boring, because it is, again, a pretty long movie, but I thought the story and the cast and the production value, the effects, the sets, really made it work. And really, I know this isn't much of a review, but this is more of a, hey, remember this movie? If you haven't seen it in a while, check it out again. And again, James Horner, I do tell once in a while this, okay, I've heard some of this stuff before, but overall I did like the score. I will admit, I like the score. And I've said this 50 times, it's a well done movie. I mean, Ed Harris's character I like when he goes like, failure is not an option. And them get back home, and you have a nice sort of last line where when are we talking about, the, how do I put it? Sort of not being cheesy or corny, but also about space travel, about how, you know, when are we going back to the moon, and who is it going to be? Sort of that line of dialogue. It's not the exact line, but I don't know, it sort of makes you smile. It's like, yeah, there's dangers in space travel, but at the same time, it's the fact that all these people work together to get these guys home. It's a triumphant story. It's a story that makes you smile. It's a story. This isn't an action film. It's not meant to be. I understand that, but this is my kind of story. I like astronaut type stories. I mean, the Right Stuff, that was one of those few films I couldn't get into. The Right Stuff. I like this film more than The Right Stuff, to be honest. I couldn't really get into The Right Stuff too much, but I didn't see the miniseries From the Earth to the Moon, but I've heard good things about it. I think Tom Hanks and Ron Howard had a hand in that as well. I know Tom Hanks did. I don't know about Ron Howard, but I know Tom Hanks did. Yeah, he did. Just a really, I don't know what more I can say. This doesn't need to go on any further. Yeah, this is just me letting you guys know Apollo 13 is still held up for me. I still think it's a damn good film, good story, good cast. What more can I say? It's Apollo 13. One of my favorite dramatic films of Tom Hanks, and I would say my favorite Ron Howard film. Nominated for 9 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, and deservedly so. Either way, thanks for watching, take care, and we'll see you next time. Later.